The sky above the silver forest was quiet, painted with two moons that glowed faintly through drifting clouds. A broken trail of smoke stretched across the horizon, marking where the human traveler's ship had fallen. Deep inside the forest, among tall trees with glowing veins of light, a man named Ryan stirred from the wreckage. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with dust, but he was alive. He coughed and pulled himself out of the bent doorway of his craft. The ship was beyond repair, half of its frame was buried in the soft moss of the alien soil. Still, Ryan was thankful he had survived when he should not have. He looked around at the strange land. The trees were unlike any he had seen on Earth, their leaves long and thin, their bark shimmering with faint colors. A stream ran close by, clear and glowing slightly under the moons. "Where am I?" he whispered to himself. What Ryan did not know was that he was already being watched. From behind a cluster of silver trees, a pair of wide violet eyes followed him carefully. Alia, a young alien girl of the forest people, crouched low to the ground. Her teal-blue skin blended with the shadows, and her long hair, the color of soft dusk, brushed against her shoulders. She had never seen a human before, though stories of outsiders had traveled through her village. Most tales warned of danger beings who could not be trusted. Yet, when she saw Ryan dragging pieces of metal from the wreck, he did not look dangerous. He looked tired. Ryan spent the next hour gathering what he could. He pulled free a broken panel, some wiring, and a small power core that still hummed faintly. His hands moved with steady skill, repairing a small drone that had fallen beside the ship. It was a round, hovering device, no larger than his hand. The lens was cracked, and the engine sputtered. Ryan worked quietly, muttering under his breath. With only a spark and a few adjustments, the drone lit up and began to hover again, bobbing softly in the air. Alia gasped before she could stop herself. The sound was small, but Ryan heard it. He froze, his head snapping toward the trees. "Who's there?" he called out. His voice echoed strangely through the forest. Alia's first thought was to run. But her curiosity held her still. Slowly, carefully, she stepped out from behind a tree. The moons painted her features clearly, skin like polished stone, eyes bright and unblinking, and a soft natural beauty that belonged to the wild forest itself. She looked fragile yet strong, cautious yet curious. Ryan blinked in surprise. "You," he breathed. He had seen many strange creatures in his travels, but never one like her. For a moment, neither moved. The forest hummed quietly around them. Finally, Ryan lifted his hand and showed her the drone, now fixed and glowing faintly. "It works again," he said softly, as if offering proof that he meant no harm. Alia tilted her head. She had seen the drone broken before. She had watched it fall when the ship crashed. To see it flying again felt impossible. Her people relied on machines, yet none of them could have repaired something so quickly. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper. How did you do that?" Ryan smiled faintly, though weariness lingered in his eyes. "I've been fixing machines my whole life. It's what I know." Alia looked from the drone to his face. There was no boast in his voice, only simple truth. She studied him carefully. He was not like the stories told in her village. He was not cruel or violent. He was just human. The silence stretched until Alia spoke again. "You are not from here." "No," Ryan admitted. "I came from far away. But my ship is broken. I don't know how to leave." He looked at the forest around him, the endless trees, the glowing streams. "And I don't know if I can survive here alone." Alia hesitated. Every warning from her elders told her to stay away. But something in her heart pushed her forward. This man had fallen from the sky, yet instead of bringing fear, he had shown her wonder, fixing what was broken, making the impossible look simple. She took another step closer. Maybe, you are not as the stories say. Ryan's brows lifted. What do the stories say? That humans bring only trouble, Alia said quietly. She looked at the drone again, still hovering gently in the air. But maybe the stories are wrong. For the first time since his crash, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. This girl, this stranger, might be the bridge between him and her people. He bowed his head slightly. Then maybe we can prove the stories wrong together. Alia studied him for another long moment. Then, with a soft nod, she turned back toward the trees. Follow me, human. If the forest does not claim you, perhaps my village will listen. Ryan watched as she slipped into the shadows, graceful and quiet. He took a deep breath, steadying his tired legs, and followed. Behind them, the repaired drone floated like a small lantern, lighting their path through the silver forest. And so began the first meeting of a human and an alien girl, two souls from different worlds, brought together by chance, and by the spark of something greater than fear. The forest was alive with sound the next morning. Birds with crystal wings glided between the silver branches, and small glowing insects hovered over the moss. Ryan had spent the night near a stream, resting against the trunk of a tall tree. His body ached from the crash, but his spirit felt lighter. He kept replaying the memory of the alien girl who had appeared, spoken, and then vanished into the forest shadows. He wondered if she would return. With nothing else to do, he focused on survival. He gathered dry grass and thin sticks, arranging them carefully. Then he struck two stones together, sparks jumping until a flame caught. Soon a small fire burned brightly, crackling and spreading warmth. The smoke curled upward through the silver leaves. Ryan sat back, satisfied. Fire was simple, yet it was life. From a distance, Alia watched again. She had not planned to return, but curiosity had led her back. She crouched low, her violet eyes wide as she saw the strange man coax fire from nothing but stone and grass. Her people depended on machines for heat energy drawn from buried crystals or the sun collectors in their village. Without those, they would be helpless in the cold nights. But this human, he made warmth with his bare hands. To her, it looked like magic. She stepped closer without meaning to, a branch snapping under her foot. Ryan looked up instantly. His sharp gaze found her among the trees, but instead of fear, his expression softened. "You came back," he said. Alia froze. She had meant to observe quietly, but now she was caught. Slowly, she stepped out from the shadows. "I wanted to see," she admitted softly. Ryan moved aside and gestured toward the fire. "Then come closer. It won't hurt you." Hesitant but curious, Alia approached. The heat touched her skin, strange and new. She reached out a hand, pulling it back quickly when the warmth brushed her fingers. "It is alive," she whispered. Ryan chuckled. "Not alive. Just fire. It burns, but it keeps us safe." He picked up a small pot he had salvaged from the wreck and set it over the flames. From a pouch, he poured dried food rations and water into the pot. Soon the smell of cooking filled the air. Alia's nose twitched. "What is that?" "Food," Ryan said with a smile. "Better than eating roots or berries raw." He stirred the mixture until it thickened into a stew. Then he scooped a portion into a small bowl and offered it to her. Alia looked at the bowl as if it were a test. Sharing food was sacred in her culture, to eat from another's hand was to accept trust. She hesitated, then slowly took it. The stew was warm against her palms. She raised it to her lips and tasted carefully. The flavor was strange, unlike anything in her world, but it filled her with warmth she had never felt before. Her eyes widened. This is good." Ryan laughed softly. "I'm glad. Humans aren't the strongest or the fastest, but we know how to survive." Alia looked at him curiously. "You make fire from stone?" You fix broken machines. And now you make food taste like this. She shook her head in disbelief. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? Ryan asked. Alia lowered her gaze. A stranger who brings danger. That is what the elders say about humans. Ryan stirred his own bowl, his smile fading slightly. Maybe some humans do. But not all of us. He looked at her with steady eyes. I don't want to harm anyone here. I just want to live. The sincerity in his voice made Alia pause. She studied him again, noticing the tired lines on his face, the dirt on his clothes, and the quiet strength in his movements. He did not act like a conqueror. He acted like someone simply trying to survive. The fire crackled between them, filling the silence with warmth. Alia set down the empty bowl, her heart unsettled. She should leave. She should not trust him. Yet something inside whispered that perhaps her people's stories were not the full truth. You are strange, Ryan, she said softly. Strange, but not frightening. Ryan smiled faintly. I'll take that as a compliment. Before she could answer, a sound echoed through the forest, a low rumble, like stones grinding together. Both of them froze. The ground shook slightly, and birds scattered from the trees. Alia's eyes widened in alarm. It is the forest's warning, she whispered. Something stirs. Ryan stood quickly, scanning the trees. What kind of something? Alia shook her head, her expression tense. I do not know. But the earth does not move without reason. For a moment, the rumble faded, leaving only silence. Alia looked uneasy, her instincts telling her to return to her village. She stepped back toward the trees. I must go, she said quickly. Ryan wanted to stop her, but he understood. She did not yet fully trust him. Still, he called out gently, will I see you again? Alia hesitated at the edge of the trees. Her heart argued with her mind. Against all warnings, she turned back and met his gaze. Perhaps, she said quietly. Then, like a shadow, she vanished into the forest. Ryan stood alone by the fire, the pot of stew still bubbling softly. He looked at the trees where she had disappeared and smiled to himself. She had returned once. He believed she would return again. And somewhere deep inside, Alia knew she would. The silver forest was quiet again, but for Ryan, the silence was no longer heavy. He had seen the alien girl twice now, and each time she left him with more questions. He wondered if she believed in him at all, or if she was simply curious. Either way, her presence had given him hope. For the next 2 days, Ryan worked to build a small shelter near the stream. He cut long branches, tied them with strips of cloth from his broken ship, and shaped a roof with broad leaves. The fire kept him warm at night, and the repaired drone hovered nearby like a loyal companion. Survival was hard, but he was used to hard things. What weighed on him more was the uncertainty. Would she come back again? The answer came on the 3rd day. Alia appeared in the late afternoon, stepping lightly through the tall grass as if the forest itself made way for her. Her violet eyes sparkled in the fading sunlight, but her expression was careful. She carried a woven bag slung across her shoulder. You are still here, she said, her voice calm but carrying a trace of surprise. Ryan looked up from the fire he was tending and smiled. I told you I don't plan on leaving. Alia's eyes fell on the shelter he had built. She studied the sturdy frame and the neatly tied knots. You built this without tools. Ryan shrugged. Humans use what they have. Sometimes that's all we can do. She walked closer, placing her bag gently on the ground. I brought something. She pulled out a bundle of fruit, small and glowing faintly blue. These are safe to eat. They will give you strength. Ryan accepted them with gratitude. Thank you. I've been trying not to eat anything strange, just in case. He tasted one and smiled at the sweet, refreshing flavor. Better than my dried rations. Alia sat down near the fire, watching him quietly. Something about the warmth, the smell of smoke, and the steady crackle made her feel at ease. She did not understand it fully, but she liked being here. Then, suddenly, the peace shattered. A low crack echoed through the forest. The ground trembled beneath them. Ryan's head shot up, scanning the trees. Alia stiffened. The cliffs, she whispered. Something is shifting. They both stood quickly. In the distance, a sharp cry rang out, a sound of panic. Without thinking, Alia ran toward it. Ryan followed close behind, his legs carrying him faster than he thought possible. They reached a narrow cliff path where the forest opened to a deep ravine. The earth had cracked, and a young villager from Alia's people clung desperately to the edge of a crumbling ledge. Stones tumbled down into the darkness below. "Help!" the villager cried, her voice breaking with fear. Alia froze. She was too far to reach, and the ledge looked ready to collapse entirely. Her hands trembled. "I cannot," she whispered, fear gripping her. But Ryan didn't hesitate. He ran forward, his boots skidding on the loose soil. "Hold on," he shouted. He dropped flat, stretching his arm toward the frightened villager. The ledge groaned, cracks spreading quickly. "Ryan, stop!" Alia called out. "The ground will give way." But Ryan only pushed further, bracing his legs against a rock. "Grab my hand," he urged. The villager, shaking and crying, reached up with all her strength. Their hands locked just as the ledge gave a final shudder and broke apart, falling into the ravine. For a terrifying moment, Ryan's weight nearly pulled him down too. His arms burned, his grip slipping, but with a roar of effort, he hauled the villager upward and rolled back onto safe ground. They collapsed together, gasping for breath. The young villager clung to him, trembling but alive. Alia rushed forward, her heart pounding. She stared at Ryan in disbelief. He had risked everything without thinking twice. You saved her," she said softly. Ryan sat up, brushing dirt from his arms. His chest heaved, but his eyes were steady. "Of course I did. I couldn't just stand there." The rescued villager looked at Alia with wide eyes. "He pulled me back. I thought I would fall forever, but he saved me." Alia helped her to her feet, her own hands shaking. She turned to Ryan, her voice unsteady. "Not once, not twice, but 3 times now. You have done what no one expected." Ryan frowned in confusion. "3 times?" Alia nodded. "The first time you fixed what was broken. The second you made fire and gave me food. And now," her voice caught, her eyes shining with something she could not hide. "Now you have saved a life." Ryan looked at her for a long moment, then gave a tired but gentle smile. "Maybe that's just what humans do." The rescued villager hurried back toward the village path, eager to tell others what had happened. Alia remained, standing in the fading light with Ryan. She felt torn between the warnings of her people and the truth she had seen with her own eyes. She whispered, almost to herself, 3 times, and still I cannot understand you." Ryan looked toward the forest, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe understanding comes later. For now, survival is enough." The wind carried their words into the trees, as the sun slipped below the horizon. Alia watched the human standing there, dust on his clothes and determination in his eyes, and she realized something had changed inside her. He was no longer just a stranger. He was something far more difficult to ignore. And though she did not yet know why, she knew this was not the last time he would surprise her. The forest air felt heavy after the cliff incident. Alia walked beside Ryan in silence, her thoughts tangled. The image of him pulling her villager to safety kept replaying in her mind. Each time she remembered his strength and his courage, her heart tightened with both awe and confusion. Her people had always been warned about outsiders. Outsiders were said to bring chaos, to disturb the balance of the forest. Yet here was a human who had fixed, created, and saved, not destroyed. Could the stories of her people truly be wrong? When they reached the stream, Alia turned to him. You should not stay here in the open. The others will find you. Ryan tilted his head. Is that a bad thing? Alia hesitated. She looked at the path leading deeper into the forest, toward her village. They will fear you. They will not believe what I have seen. Ryan's voice was calm. Then let me show them. His simple words carried weight. Alia studied him closely, searching his face for any trace of deception. She found none. His eyes were steady, honest, and filled with determination. At last, she nodded slowly. Very well. But you must let me speak for you. The next morning, Alia guided Ryan through the forest paths. Birds called overhead, and the glowing streams wove like silver ribbons through the trees. Ryan walked carefully, respectful of the land, noticing how Alia's steps seemed to flow with the rhythm of the forest itself. She belonged here. He was an intruder, but he hoped to prove himself worthy. As they approached the village, sounds of daily life grew louder. Children's laughter mixed with the hum of machinery powered by crystal energy. The homes were built high in the trees, connected by rope bridges and platforms that glowed faintly in the daylight. Ryan's eyes widened. It's beautiful, he murmured. Alia glanced at him. Do not speak unless I tell you. They will not be ready to hear your voice. When they entered the open clearing, heads turned immediately. Conversation stopped, and dozens of violet eyes fixed on the human walking behind Alia. Murmurs spread like ripples in water. Some pointed, others whispered sharply. The air thickened with suspicion. An elder, tall and robed in silver cloth, stepped forward. His voice was stern. Alia. What have you brought into our home? Alia bowed respectfully. Elder Saran, I bring a traveler who has shown kindness. He is not the danger we were taught to fear. Saran's gaze hardened as it swept over Ryan. He is a human. That alone is danger. The villagers nodded, their faces tense. But Alia raised her voice, her courage surprising even herself. You are wrong. I saw him repair what was broken. I saw him create fire without a machine. And I saw him risk his life to save one of our own when the cliffs gave way. She pointed toward the young villager, who stood among the crowd. Ask her. She lives because of him. All eyes turned to the rescued villager. She stepped forward, trembling but brave. It is true. I would have fallen into the ravine, but the human pulled me back. He saved me. A wave of whispers rolled through the crowd. Some villagers looked shocked, others unconvinced. Elder Seren narrowed his eyes. Even if he helped once, what proves he will not harm us tomorrow? Ryan finally spoke, his voice steady though quiet. I don't ask for trust one haven't earned. I only ask for a chance. Let me work, let me help. If I fail, you may send me away. But if I prove myself, then perhaps your stories need to change. The villagers fell silent at his words. His voice was foreign, but there was no arrogance in it. Only sincerity. Alia felt her chest tighten with pride. She had feared he would speak too boldly, but instead, he had spoken with humility. Elder Seren looked at Alia for a long moment. You risk much, child, by bringing him here. If he brings harm, it will fall on your name. I accept that, Alia said firmly. The elder raised his staff and struck the ground once. Very well. He may stay for now. But he is watched. One mistake, and he leaves. Reluctant nods spread through the villagers. Some still glared at Ryan with suspicion, but others looked uncertain, even curious. As the crowd dispersed, Alia turned to him quietly. That was better than I expected. Ryan gave a small smile. I'll take that as a victory. That night, the village glowed softly under the twin moons. Ryan was given a small space near the outer platforms to rest. He sat by himself, looking out over the forest, listening to the faint hum of crystal machines. For the first time since his crash, he was not alone. Alia approached, her steps quiet. She sat beside him, her expression softer than before. They do not trust you yet. But I saw how they listened. That is more than I hoped. Ryan looked at her with gratitude. Thank you, Alia. Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far. She turned her gaze to the moons. I do not understand you, Ryan. 3 times, you have proven us wrong. And still, you choose to stay in a place where you are unwelcome. Why? Ryan thought for a moment, then answered simply. Because sometimes the hardest places are the ones worth staying in. Alia's eyes lingered on him, her heart unsettled by his words. She did not yet know what his presence would mean for her people or for herself. But she knew one thing clearly. The barrier between human and alien had begun to crack, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days passed quietly after Ryan's arrival in the village. Though many still watched him with suspicion, he kept to his promise. He worked without complaint, helping to repair small tools, building simple shelters, and showing children how to tie ropes stronger than before. Some villagers whispered that he was dangerous, but others began to wonder if perhaps he was more helpful than harmful. Alia stayed close to him, often guiding him through tasks and explaining her people's ways. She found herself caught between duty and curiosity. Each time Ryan created something new with his bare hands, she was reminded again of the 3 times he had surprised her before. But peace never lasts long. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the treetops, a strange sound shook the forest. It was not the call of birds or the growl of wild beasts. It was deeper metal grinding against stone, followed by a heavy, rhythmic thud. The ground trembled with each step. The villagers rushed to the platforms, fear spreading quickly. The earth awakens, someone shouted. Alia's face went pale. No, it cannot be. Ryan stepped to her side. What is it? Her voice trembled. An old war machine. They were buried long ago, sealed beneath the cliffs. We were told they would never rise again. Before Ryan could answer, a massive shape tore through the trees at the edge of the clearing. It was a beast of steel and shadow, its body covered in rust and cracked plating. Its eyes glowed red, and its limbs moved with heavy, mechanical power. Each step sent vibrations through the ground, shaking the bridges and platforms above. The villagers screamed, scattering for safety. Energy bolts fired from the beast's chest, striking the ground and tearing apart roots and soil. Run! Elder Seren commanded. To the upper platforms. The people obeyed, climbing ropes and bridges, but panic made them clumsy. The great machine swung its clawed arm, smashing a tree in half. The forest itself seemed to cry out. Ryan's heart pounded, but something inside him clicked into place. He had seen machines like this before, not here, not on this world, but in old human records of wars long past. The design was familiar, even if broken and ancient. He muttered to himself, I know this kind of monster. Alia clutched his arm. You cannot face it? Nothing can stop it? Ryan looked at her, his eyes steady. Machines have weaknesses. You just have to find them. He broke free gently and ran toward the wreckage of his own ship, which still lay near the stream outside the village. Alia followed him, fear and confusion battling in her chest. What are you doing? She cried. Getting what I need, Ryan said, pulling out scraps of wire, a broken energy cell, and a metal rod. His hands moved quickly, shaping the pieces into something new. If I can reach its control core, I can shut it down. But I'll need a way to get close. Alia stared at him. His calm determination both frightened and amazed her. That thing will kill you. Ryan shook his head. Not if I'm faster. Back in the clearing, the beast continued its rampage. Villagers threw spears powered by crystals, but the weapons bounced harmlessly off the metal shell. Children cried, and elders prayed. The great machine was unstoppable, or so it seemed. Ryan sprinted back, holding his makeshift device. The villagers gasped when they saw him running toward the monster instead of away. He is mad, one shouted. He will be crushed, another cried. But Alia's voice rose above them. Trust him. The mechanical beast turned, locking its red gaze on Ryan. It roared, a grinding sound of gears and fury, and raised its claw to strike. Ryan dived forward, rolling under its arm. Sparks flew as the claw slammed into the earth behind him. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted again, weaving between its legs. Now, he shouted, jamming the metal rod into a joint on the creature's lower frame. The beast staggered, its movement slowing for a heartbeat. He climbed quickly, gripping onto the jagged edges of its armor. The machine shook violently, trying to throw him off. Hold on. Alia cried from below, her hands clenched tight against her chest. Ryan reached the exposed panel at the beast's back. With all his strength, he forced the wires and the energy cell into the opening. Sparks exploded, and the monster howled in mechanical rage. Ryan twisted the wires, and the device lit up with a blinding flash. The beast froze. Its glowing eyes flickered once, twice, then dimmed. Slowly, its body stiffened, and with a final groan of grinding metal, it collapsed to the ground. Dust and smoke rose into the air, settling over the silent clearing. For a moment, no one moved. The villagers stared in disbelief at the human standing on top of the fallen machine. Ryan slid down from its back, coughing but alive. He raised his head, his voice steady. It's done. It won't hurt you anymore. The villagers erupted in shouts, some of joy, others of shock. Children pointed, eyes wide with wonder. Elders whispered among themselves, unable to deny what they had seen. Alia rushed forward, her heart pounding. She reached him, her violet eyes shining. You stopped it, you truly stopped it? Ryan gave a tired smile. Like I said, machines have weaknesses. Alia shook her head in disbelief. Her voice trembled as she whispered, 4 times now. You've proven us wrong, Ryan. 4 times, you've done the impossible. Ryan glanced at the fallen beast, then at the villagers who now looked at him not only with fear, but also with awe. He knew this was only the beginning. The great war machine lay silent in the clearing, its once glowing eyes now dim, its heavy body sinking into the earth like a fallen giant. The villagers gathered slowly, stepping closer with cautious awe. For generations they had feared these machines, believing no living being could defeat one. Yet before their very eyes, the outsider had brought it down. Ryan stood beside the wreck, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His clothes were torn, his hands scratched and dirty, but his eyes were steady. He glanced at the villagers and saw their expressions, some filled with fear, others with wonder. He had expected disbelief, maybe even anger. But instead, there was silence. Alia broke that silence. She walked to his side, her violet eyes glowing in the moonlight. He has saved us, she said, her voice strong. Do not deny what you saw. Without him, our homes would be gone, and our children would be lost. The young villager Ryan had rescued at the cliffs earlier stepped forward. It is true. First he saved me, and now he has saved all of us. Murmurs spread through the crowd. A few nodded in agreement. Elder Saran, however, remained stern. He raised his staff. Perhaps he has done this. But why? What does a human gain from saving us? Ryan spoke then, his voice calm but firm. I don't want anything. Not land, not power, not riches. I only want to live, and if living means helping those around me, then that is what I will do. It's as simple as that. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. His words were plain, yet they carried weight. There was no cunning in his tone, only honesty. Alia turned to the elder, her voice firm. You ask why he helped us? I ask, why should he not? He has shown more heart than many of our own. Would we question our people the same way, if it were them? The elder hesitated. His stern expression cracked for the first time, though only slightly. Ryan, noticing the doubt still lingering in their eyes, walked toward the fallen machine. He climbed onto its back, pried open the cracked panel, and began pulling free wires and shards of crystal. The villagers gasped, worried he was waking it again, but he raised a hand. No, watch closely. With careful movements, he connected fragments together and shaped a small device. Sparks flickered, then a faint light glowed in his palm. He tossed it gently to the ground. The glow spread like a lantern, steady and warm. This is what humans do, Ryan explained. We break what tries to harm us, and we build something new from the pieces. We don't always have strength, but we find another way. We think, we create, we try again. The villagers stared at the glowing shard on the ground. It was simple, yet it was proof of something they had never considered, the power to turn destruction into hope. Alia's voice softened but carried through the clearing. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but many times now this human has shown us what he is. Perhaps our stories were wrong. Perhaps humans are not destroyers, but builders. A young child tugged at her mother's arm. Mother, if he can fight monsters, can he teach us too? The mother hesitated, then looked at Ryan with new eyes. Maybe he can. The shift was small, but it spread. The whispers were no longer filled with fear but with curiosity, even respect. For the first time, the villagers looked at Ryan not as an enemy but as something else, perhaps a protector, perhaps a teacher, perhaps even a friend. Elder Seren lowered his staff. His deep voice rumbled. Human, you have done more in one day than I believed possible. Though doubt remains in me, I cannot deny the truth before my eyes. For now, you may stay not as a prisoner, not as a stranger, but as a guest. The villagers murmured in agreement. Some even bowed their heads slightly toward Ryan. Ryan gave a faint, tired smile. That's all I ask. A chance to stand among you. That night, the village celebrated not with feasting, but with relief. Families gathered around fires, children whispered stories of the human who tamed a metal beast, and elders spoke quietly of what this might mean for the future. Alia sat beside Ryan on one of the rope bridges, overlooking the glowing forest below. She studied his face, lit by the soft shine of the moons. Do you understand what you have done? She asked. Ryan chuckled. I almost got myself killed, that's what I did. She shook her head. No. You changed something. You showed them a new way of seeing. You showed me too. Ryan's gaze softened as he looked at her. And you showed me something as well. Without your trust, I wouldn't have made it this far. Alia turned her eyes toward the stars. Perhaps trust is not as dangerous as I thought. The forest was quiet now, the beast defeated, the village safe. But both of them knew this was only a pause in the storm. Challenges would return, and questions would rise again. Still, for this night, they allowed themselves a moment of peace. And though Alia did not speak it aloud, she felt the truth deep in her heart, this human was unlike any being she had ever known. He was more than a survivor, more than a stranger. He was proof that sometimes, the impossible could become real. The village woke slowly the next morning, the heavy air of fear replaced with something lighter, something brighter. For the first time in many seasons, The songs of birds carried over the treetop homes. Families opened their doors without glancing over their shoulders, and children ran across rope bridges with laughter instead of silence. At the center of the village, the wreck of the fallen war machine still lay like a scar on the earth. Yet now, it was no longer a symbol of terror. It was proof that the cycle of fear could be broken. Proof that the impossible was not beyond reach. Ryan stood at the edge of the clearing, his hand resting against the rough bark of a tree. His body still ached from the fight, but his spirit was steady. He watched the villagers move about with a quiet smile. It was not his world, not his people, yet something inside him told him he belonged here. Alia approached, her long steps graceful, her expression calm but thoughtful. She stopped beside him and followed his gaze to the wreck. "It still feels strange," she admitted. "For so long we told ourselves no outsider could bring us good. But you have done more than any of us thought possible." Ryan glanced at her, half smiling. "Sometimes it takes an outsider to see the cracks in the walls people build around themselves." She tilted her head. "And what do you see now?" He took a long breath. "I see hope. But also questions. If these machines keep coming, you'll need more than one fight. You'll need to change the way you face them." Alia nodded. "Change is never easy for my people. But perhaps now, they will listen." As if on cue, Elder Seren appeared, leaning on his carved staff. His face, usually hard, was softer in the morning light. He studied Ryan carefully, then spoke. "Last night I doubted you, human. I thought your strength was a trick, your words a mask. But I see now I was wrong. You have earned a place among us." The elder lifted his staff high so the villagers gathering nearby could see. "This human is no longer a stranger. He is a friend of our people. Let it be known." The villagers clapped their hands together in their way of showing respect. Children cheered, and some of the adults even smiled at Ryan openly. The sound was humble, yet powerful. It was acceptance. Ryan felt warmth in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. He bowed his head slightly. "Thank you. I will not forget this." Later that day, the villagers gathered around fires to speak of the future. Ryan sat among them, listening and offering ideas. He showed them how to reuse the pieces of the fallen machine, turning its broken parts into tools, shields, and even simple lights. His hands moved quickly, shaping new things from the wreckage. Each creation drew whispers of amazement. Alia sat nearby, watching the people lean closer to Ryan's words. "They trust you," she said softly. Ryan shook his head. "They trust what they see. If I can give them even a little hope, then it's worth it." As the sun dipped below the trees, painting the sky gold and purple, Alia and Ryan climbed to one of the highest bridges. From there, the whole forest stretched before them, vast, endless, alive. Alia's voice was quiet. "Do you know what surprises me most? Not once, not twice, but 3 times now you have stood in danger and chosen to fight for us. Any other would have run. Why did you stay?" Ryan leaned on the wooden rail, looking at the horizon. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "Because running doesn't change anything. If I can stand and make even a small difference, then that's enough. That's what it means to be human. We fall, we rise, and we keep going." Alia's eyes softened as she studied him. For so long, she had thought of humans as distant, strange, even dangerous. But now, she saw something else, something rare. "Perhaps that is your greatest strength," she whispered. "Not power. Not weapons. But the heart to keep standing, no matter how many times the world pushes you down." They stood in silence for a while, listening to the forest breathe around them. Below, the villagers sang. It was not a song of sorrow, but of new beginnings. Their voices rose together, carrying hope into the night sky. For the first time, Alia let herself smile without fear. She turned to Ryan. Maybe you were never truly an outsider. Maybe you were meant to find us. Ryan chuckled softly. Or maybe I just got lost. She laughed quietly, the sound light and rare. Then I am glad you did. The moons climbed higher, silver light washing over the treetops. And there, on the high bridge above a world that once feared him, Ryan realized he had found more than survival. He had found belonging. The battles ahead were uncertain, the dangers far from gone. But he knew this, whatever came next, he would not face it alone. Because not once, not twice, but countless times, he would rise again. And this time, the people would rise with him.